Today we're going to continue going over the zero product property, just like what we did yesterday. Right, so if you look at the work for today, right, on our class page, always in the most current week's channel, right below, right above the new attendance post where you can mark yourself present for extra credit, we'll see Wednesday's work, right? So all we have to do today is page 1 of week 7 problems, questions 6 through 10. Alright, so let's take a look at those problems that we're going to have to do. Right, week 7 problems. And then we're looking for page 1, problems 6 through 10. Alright, so if you see here, right, it's just the same thing that we did yesterday. So, assuming that you did the work that you were supposed to do yesterday, you might be feeling pretty comfortable about these problems, especially considering that they're just like what we were doing before, just with one extra step. And remember, you always want to be careful about those problems where it does not equal 0, right? Because we're using the 0 product property, not the -4 product property, right? Not the x squared product property, or not the 3 product property, right? It's always the 0 product property. So on one of the sides of the equal sign, we just need there to be a 0. So moving on to the actual problems. Alright, so we're going to start off with problem 6, right? And we're going to do these the exact same way that we were doing them yesterday. Which is pretty similar to how we were doing them quite a while ago. So, oops, just give it a second here. Alright, so we're going to put the first, okay, so, right, looking at this problem, we see that there is no 0 on one side of the equal signs, like we want it. So we could either move the x squared all the way over here, or we can move everything else to the x squared side. So I'm going to go for moving everything to the x squared side, because it's always a little bit easier if the x squared is positive. I like to make sure that the x squared is positive. So we're going to move everything from the left side to the right side. So we're going to say minus 6x plus 9 from both sides. Right, because we want this left side to be 0, right? Right, 6x minus 6x is 0, negative 9 plus 9 is 0. Right, and then on this side, right, we just put minus 6x plus 9 after the x squared. So it's x squared minus 6x plus 9. So now we could fill in our generic rectangle with the first term and the last term. X squared and 9, multiply them together and you get 9x squared. The middle term goes down on the bottom, right, which is minus 6x. So now we're looking for the factors of 9x squared that will add to negative 6x, right? So they have to multiply to a positive and add to a negative, right? So the only possibility here is for both of them to be negative, right? Because if they're both positive, they'll never add to be a negative number. So now it could be negative 1 times negative 9, negative 3 times negative 3, right? we want it to add to negative 6x, right? The first one's add to negative 10x, second one's add to negative 6x. So our factors are going to be minus 3x and minus 3x. So that's what we could go ahead and fill it in the diamond, minus 3x and minus 3x. And then we could go ahead and we could fill that in into the generic rectangle as well. So now, right, finding the greatest common factor, going up and down from this x squared, right? They both have an x. Going across, they both have an x. Remember, whenever this top left box is x squared, it'll always just be x and x as our factors, right? Because there's no number before the x squared, so we could pull out an x, right? But we can't pull out like a 2 or a 3 or something if there's no number even there. So now we have right, our x and our x, right? So we could drop it down and across. So now x times what is negative 3x? Negative 3. Alright, so drop the negative 3 down there, and then negative 3 times what is positive 9? Well, we know that 3 times 3 is 9, so negative 3 times negative 3 will also be 9. Drop it across, and then we got our length and our width. So let's go ahead and put it in there. Right. You might have noticed that this is one of our special forms, right? This is one of our perfect square trinomials. We could write this as x minus 3 squared. Right, but let's go ahead and just solve it like this, right? So we're going to, right, we know that x minus 3 equals 0. Since they're the same, we don't need to separate it, right? Because we could say x minus 3 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0, but there's no need to write the same thing twice, right? If we solve x minus 3 equals 0, it'll give us the same answer no matter what every time we solve it. And what number minus 3 is 0? We add 3 to both sides. X is 3. So we see here that when we have a perfect square trinomial, we only get one answer. But most of the time, we get two answers. So for the next problem, we'll move on to 7. Right, does it equal 0? Yeah, that's good. So we could just go ahead and start by putting the first and the last in the corners. 6x squared and minus 4. Multiply these together and you get minus 24x. So you get minus 24x, right? And then we put the 5x, the middle term, on the bottom. So now we're looking for the factors of negative 24x squared that adds to positive 5x. Right, lots of factors of 24x squared. Right, so if it's 1x and negative 24x, we get negative 23x. Switch up the negatives, we get positive 23x. 2x and negative 12x gives us negative 10x. You switch up the negatives, you're going to get positive 10x. 3x and negative 8x gives us negative 5x. Oh, that's kind of getting close to what we want. We just got to switch up the negatives and make it 5x, right? So there we go. We don't need these, right? Because we already found the answer. So we could stop our search for the factors. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and fill it into our generic rectangle. Minus 3x and 8x. And then from there, we could fill it in, fill it into our diamond. And now we fill it into our generic rectangle. Minus 3x and 8x. Okay, so now, right, both of these are going to have an x. Then we got to think about what numbers, right, fit into negative 3 and 6. Right? A good place to start is always look for, see if the smaller number fits into the bigger number, right? Does and just think about 3, right? Does 3 fit into 6? Yeah. So we could pull out, right, a 3 and an x. Going across, right? The smaller number is 6. Does 6 fit into 8? No. So what number goes into 6 and 8, right? So numbers that go into 6 are 3. Does 3 go into 8? No. Does 2 go into 8? Yeah. So from here we could pull out a 2 and an x. Going up and down we could pull out a 3 and an x. Alright, so drop it down and drop it across. The 3x drops down, the 2x drops across. How many times does 2x go into 8x? 4 times. Positive 4. Drop it down. 4 times what is negative 4? Well, we just need to make it the opposite, so we gotta just multiply by negative 1. Move it over. Got our length and our width. We could fill it in. Alright, so now we see we're on track to getting 2 answers, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up into 2 equations, 3x plus 4 equals 0, or 2x minus 1 equals 0. So from this equation, we're going to say minus 4 and minus 4. This equation, we're going to say plus 1 and plus 1, right? Because we want these guys next to the x's to cancel out. So now the 3x drops down and the 2x drops down. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. 0 plus 1 is 1. Then here we just divide both sides by 3. And here we divide both sides by 2. And we got our final answer. So now let's do problem 8 for you guys. Right. So it equals 0. That's good. Right? That's the most important part. If it equals 0, we could use the zero product property. So what we're going to do is we are going to put the first and the last in the corners of the generic rectangle, like always. Right? And then when we multiply them together, the first and the last in the corners of the generic rectangle. And when we multiply them together, right, we get 8x squared. We want it to add to negative 6x. Right, so this is the same as before, where they got to multiply to a, same as problem 6, where they got to multiply to a positive and add to a negative. Right, so both of our factors are going to be negative here. Right, so it's either going to be negative 1 and negative 8, which gives us negative 9. Right, or negative 2 and negative 4, which gives us negative 6. Right, which is what we wanted, negative 6x. So we could fill in negative 2x and negative 4x. Now we fill it into a generic rectangle. And remember, since this is x squared, it'll be x and x on both sides. Drop it down and across. Now we're nearing the end. X times what is negative 2x? Right, negative 2. Drop it down. Negative 2 times what is 8? Negative 4. So drop that across. We got our length and our width here. So now we could fill it in here to write our area from a sum to a product. Oops. Right, so now we break it up into 2 problems. We say x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 4 equals 0. We're going to add 2 to both sides here, and we're going to add 4 to both sides here. Right, to make these guys next to the x's cancel out. Then we just get x equals 2 or x equals 4. So remember, you guys still need to do 9 and 10. And if you haven't already, finish up the work on Khan Academy, practicing the zero product property. And that's all the work for today.